The night the bus coughed its last breath at the cracked terminal, rain was falling the way it does when the world feels tired of holding things together, slow but heavy, soaking into bones and hopes alike. Daniel Carter stood under the flickering yellow light with his coat pulled tight and his heart pulled tighter, counting the coins in his pocket for the third time even though he already knew the truth. There was only one bus ticket left in his hand, thin as paper but heavy as his entire future, and behind him his little son slept on his shoulder, unaware that this single slip of paper decided whether they would make it home or spend another night wondering how much more life could ask from a man who had already given everything. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of doing the right thing even when it hurts, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Daniel had not planned for life to turn out this way. He had once been a man with a steady job, a small house with a porch that creaked in a familiar way, and a wife whose laughter filled rooms without trying. But illness does not ask permission, and loss does not come with warnings. After Emma passed away, the house felt too large and the silence too loud, and medical bills slowly ate through savings like rust through iron. Daniel worked whatever jobs he could find, warehouses, night shifts, deliveries, anything that allowed him to still be a father by day. That evening, after being let go from another temporary job, he had scraped together enough for a single bus ticket back to the shelter on the other side of the city where he and his son, Noah, had been staying. It was not much, but it was something, and sometimes something was all a man had left. As the bus terminal emptied, Daniel noticed a woman standing a few steps away from him. She looked out of place, not because of her clothes, which were simple and neat, but because of the way she stood, stiff and uncertain, like someone who had fallen into a moment they did not understand. Her hair was damp from the rain, her hands trembling as she searched her bag again and again, panic slowly rising in her eyes. Daniel recognized that look instantly. It was the same look he had worn so many nights, the look of someone realizing that help might not come. The announcement echoed that the last bus was boarding. The driver glanced at his watch, impatient. Daniel felt the familiar knot in his chest tighten. He looked down at Noah's face, peaceful in sleep, trusting without knowing why. Then he looked back at the woman, now pale and close to tears, clearly realizing she did not have a ticket and had nowhere else to go. Logic told Daniel to turn away. Survival demanded it. Kindness, however, whispered something else, something dangerous and painful and impossible to ignore. Without ceremony, without expecting thanks, Daniel stepped forward and pressed the ticket into the woman's shaking hand. He did not explain his situation or ask for her story. He simply gave away the only way home he had. In that moment, it felt like tearing a piece out of his own chest, but he did it anyway. The woman looked at him with disbelief, her eyes searching his face as if trying to understand why a stranger would do such a thing. Before she could react, the driver called again, and she was ushered onto the bus as the doors closed behind her. The bus pulled away, red lights fading into the rain. Daniel stood there, holding Noah a little tighter, the cold seeping into his shoes. He did not feel heroic. He felt foolish, scared, and very, very tired. He found a dry corner of the terminal and sat down on the floor, pulling his coat around his son as best he could. That night, as the terminal lights dimmed and the world seemed to forget them, Daniel wondered if kindness was a luxury meant only for people who could afford it. Morning came slowly, gray and unforgiving. Daniel washed up in a public restroom, using cold water to wake himself and Noah. Hunger gnawed at him, but he smiled anyway, because that was what fathers did. He spent the day walking the city, asking about work, getting polite nods and quiet rejections. By afternoon, exhaustion weighed him down. He sat on a bench outside a community center, staring at the ground, wondering how much longer he could keep pretending everything would be okay. That was when a black sedan pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and a man in a suit stepped out, scanning the area until his eyes landed on Daniel. He approached slowly, respectfully, and asked Daniel his name. Confused and wary, Daniel answered. The man explained that he worked for a private foundation and had been searching for him since early morning. Daniel felt his heart race, unsure if this was trouble or another disappointment wrapped in hope. The man explained that the woman Daniel had helped the night before was named Eleanor Whitmore. She was not just any stranger. She was the founder of a large charitable organization, someone who had spent her life helping others but had never truly known what it felt like to be helpless. That night, after a series of unfortunate events, she had lost her wallet and phone and found herself stranded for the first time in decades. Daniel's act of kindness, given without expectation or recognition, had shaken her deeply. Eleanor had not slept. She had spent the entire night thinking about the man who gave up his last chance for his child to help someone he did not know. By morning, she decided she needed to find him, not to repay him with money alone, but to change his circumstances in a way that honored the spirit of what he had done. She wanted to give him stability, dignity, and a future. Daniel was brought to a modest office where Eleanor waited. She looked different in the daylight, stronger, but her eyes still held the same emotion. She did not speak of gratitude in grand terms. Instead, she spoke of humanity, of how one small act had reminded her why she started helping people in the first place. She offered Daniel a job within her organization, not out of pity, but because she believed in his character. She arranged housing for him and Noah, temporary at first, then permanent, and support for childcare and education. She did not call it charity. She called it investment. Life did not magically become perfect overnight, but it became possible again. Daniel worked hard, learned new skills, and slowly rebuilt a sense of purpose. Noah grew in a home filled with light instead of fear. Years later, Daniel would still remember that cold night at the bus terminal, not as the moment he almost lost everything, but as the moment he chose to remain human when it would have been easier not to. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to support it by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your engagement helps spread messages like this to people who may be standing in their own rain, wondering if kindness still exists. Before this story ends, we'd love to hear from you, so please comment below about a time when a small act of kindness changed your life or someone else's. Daniel never learned to see kindness as a transaction. He saw it as a seed, planted without knowing where it might grow. And sometimes, when the world seems darkest, that seed grows into something strong enough to change everything.